good morning. Welcome to the show Living With Us. I'm your host Sharon Wendia and we are in Johannesburg, Sandton. As you can see behind me, we're at Sun Maslow, Sandton. And today's show is all about experiencing Johannesburg and a little bit of the Northwest as well. So you're going to see a little bit of that too, because we went to a cable car, a parties. It's going to be amazing. But right now we're about to head up for a cultural tour, like a historical tour of Johannesburg, and then we're going to go to Soweto and get a glimpse of Mandela's old house, which I've never been to and I'm really excited about. And I'm really excited to take you with me. So come on, let's go. So we made it to Soweto and we are at Sakumzi restaurant. I've got our tour guide, who is the most charismatic tour guide in this side of town, like I think the whole of Southern Africa. His name is Charles Mube.
Yes.
But what's the other name that I couldn't pronounce? Yeah, Charles, that one. Mube.
Yes.
So Charles, I'm so curious, even before we get into the history of Soweto, can you give us a little bit of background on South Africa? You gave a snippet of it in the bus, and I think it was so incredible. So what can you tell us about South Africa?
Okay, so South Africa has got a population of almost 56 million people, with 11 official languages.
Yeah.
English, Afrikaans, Zulu, Sotho, Xhosa, Pedi, Tswana, Tsonga, Venda, Swati, and the last one is Ndebele. Ndebele language. So yeah, with these languages that are being used day to day, the constitution of this country is in 11 different languages.
Yes. Okay. Different languages.
Yeah.
So what I find to also be really fascinating is that there's not just one capital city in South Africa.
Yes, so we got 4 capital cities. We have Pretoria. This is our main capital. This is our administrative capital. This is where the day-to-day running of the country takes place and happens.
Right.
That's where the president's offices are situated. So the day-to-day facilitation and running of the country takes place and happens in Pretoria.
Okay.
And then we've got Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
It's down in the Free State. This will be our judiciary capital. The Supreme Courts of the country are situated right in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
And then we've got Cape Town.
Okay.
Cape Town is our legislative capital. Parliament seats are right in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And then we've got
Johannesburg.
There you go.
Which is the
seat of
financial
gold.
capital.
Oh wow, you were listening, right?
I was listening.
You were listening. Yes. So Johannesburg is our financial capital. This is due to the discovery of gold. So it's also not only the financial capital of South Africa, but almost Southern Africa at large.
Right. So what can you share about the history of South Africa with regards to apartheid in particular?
Yes, so South Africa is most famous for its history when it comes to racial segregation. That's the racial segregation system that was introduced right here, officially signed and made into the Bill of Rights on the 26th of May 1948 by a gentleman called Hendrik Verwoerd. So it's a system whereby people will be separated according to the skin color.
Right.
People will be separated, black people. So people will be having 2 groups. We have the whites and the non-whites.
Okay.
And then under non-whites, we'll then have 4 subcategories.
Okay.
Will be the coloreds,
Yeah.
the Malays,
Okay.
the Indians, and then least of them all in the scale will be the blacks.
Just for people who aren't familiar, can you try and further explain, like for instance, coloreds and whites?
Okay.
Because in other places, coloreds could also mean black. I mean, sorry, no, not coloreds. Difference between coloreds and blacks.
All right. So the coloreds in this sense, we're talking about. In other countries, they call them mixed race. They say a white man, black man like me, there's a child with a...
See the joker in him already coming out? Okay.
So let's say a black man like me has a child with a white girl like you. and then the child will be regarded as a colored.
Colored, yeah.
Yes,
So that's
yeah.
the mixed race.
That's the mixed race.
And
yeah.
and was it illegal at some point, in fact, for? I mean, at which point did coloreds then become acceptable? Because I know for a long time coloreds would even have to hide.
But remember, there were some people who were against the system, people who defy all odds, like Trevor Noah's mom, defy all odds and go to the white man and have a child. So there were people like that. But those children, then you need to be hiding them, especially in the townships.
Right.
Because townships were strictly meant for black people. Like when they say you're black, your past will always state that you're black, even your skin color and everything. So when you are colored in the township, it's kind of like wait, you could be arrested, you could be killed for that as well. So that's why they had to hide them and put them away as well. Yeah.
You've mentioned the pass. Can you explain what that system was and how it was so ingrained in trying to make sure that that segregation was lived on? Can you explain,
So the pass system happened whereby, right, when they were using different types of mechanism for racial classifications.
Yeah.
Like the first method they used was the skin color, whereby they will look at your skin color and then they classify. They then say if you are darker or lighter, and then they will stipulate and state your race.
Yeah.
And then, however, if ever you were lighter in complexion, but you are black, but you are lighter in complexion, and your family could adapt into like an English surname, then you could be regarded as a colored. So then your pass will then state that you are a colored.
Okay, so that means if you are a little light-skinned,
and then
you
English
adopted an English name,
like Charles,
you
can cheat the system and go on and carry on as a colored,
Colored, because ultimately blacks were at the bottom of that tier.
So the racial classification was to identify who's the black person amongst these. So it was to identify who's the black person. So in this sense, if ever you identify as a colored, you're going to be treated better than a black person. So it's a system that was to identify who's the black person, and then after they identify as a black person, they will be cast into a township like Soweto where we are. Then this is where everything will then happen.
Right. There was a second test. Besides looking at the skin of your color, there was the second test.
Yes, the second one will be the pencil system. I'm sure you will fail the pencil system.
Oh, I would fail this. I would fail all those tests miserably.
The pencil system happen whereby they'll put a pencil in between your hair. And then if the pencil is dark, it means you are black.
Right.
But if the pencil falls off, it means you're either colored, Malay, or Indian. But again, we cheated the system. We'll put some chemicals on the hair just to straighten the hair. So when they put the pencil, it doesn't get stuck. So we were doing all this in order to get access to health, in order to get access to education, in order to be acceptable in our own country, in the society.
Which is, it's just incredible that for you to have lived through that, and that's just to show that it's such a young...
Our history is very recent, Apartheid was just abolished now, we only got democracy 25 years ago, when Nelson Mandela became the first democratically elected president. So the history of this country is still very, very new. But nevertheless, despite the dark history, despite the dark past, today we still as a rainbow nation, all thanks to the beliefs of our leaders, former leaders like Nelson Mandela and all those who sacrificed a lot. Yes.
Charles, I'm curious, did you personally, do you remember certain experiences?
A lot.
Yeah, can you share any of those with us?
Kind of like a lot of experiences. For instance, I remember 1990, my first time out of the township. We were going to the airport. I needed to use the bathroom. And then the security stopped me and said, look up. And I had to look for the one that's written 9 whites.
Wow.
Because even the bathrooms, everywhere, things had to be separated according to the skin color. So the bathrooms would be stated whites, 9 whites, whites, 9 whites. Even everywhere.
Wow.
South Africa turned into a country of science.
Right.
Yes.
So what shifts have you noticed since the abolishment of
Since the dawn of democracy, when it comes to acceptance and for people to be accepted in the societies, yes, it has really done a lot. That's why I'm saying nowadays, if you look at our flag, as the whole country of South Africa, it's a flag that has been taken from the rainbow of the sky, symbolizes unity in diversification. And South Africa is a country that has been united in diversities.
So to a lot of people, and maybe I'm biased, but I find South Africa quite charming because you've got all sorts of interests and interesting moments, from like, you know, adventures down in Cape Town to like really interesting flamboyant people. You sort of wear your vibrancy on your skin and your hair and your clothes. I really love that vibe about South Africa. And I imagine to a lot of people also, they're so curious about this country. What are some of your favorite parts of South Africa, and maybe specifically even Johannesburg?
Yeah, Johannesburg, you know, Johannesburg, we have a lot of nice areas to visit. One of the main places that you can visit is Soweto. This is where you learn more about the history. Then you see where the country comes from and how far the country has gone post-apartheid. And then in Johannesburg nowadays, we've got a lot of vibrant projects that have been introduced in the city to reignite, you know, in terms of fashion, music, food, culture, art, and everything. So we have a lot of festivals that take place in Johannesburg as well. Remember, 1995, 1996, we had a lot of shifts. Post-apartheid, we had a lot of shifts whereby people were running away from the old Johannesburg because of they thought it's dangerous and everything. So now we have programs that have been stipulated and put in place to try and bring back that kind of life. So that's why we've got places like Maboneng, the
which
prison.
is really fun.
It's a very vibrant place. If you want to do a lot of arts, graffiti tours, walking tours, past experience tours, we do
great
them.
Restaurants as well.
Great restaurants. We've got almost restaurants from all over the world in Johannesburg. Everywhere in the world. Yes, we get restaurants that the food is amazing. Yes, we got Queen Ashiba, that's Ethiopian, right?
Oh, okay.
Queen Ashiba is Ethiopian, and then we've got Kenyan restaurant there. We've got.
Do you really have a Kenyan restaurant?
We do, yes, we do. We do have Kenyan restaurant as well. Yes, we do have a Kenyan restaurant in Maboneng as well.
Okay.
So it's all to bring people from the diversity, bring it back to Johannesburg. You know, so we're trying to keep
Maboneng,
that notion.
Yeah, I like that. So Maboneng is another main attraction.
It's a main attraction nowadays in the city of Johannesburg. Yes.
What else would you say for someone who's coming into South Africa and they're going to be in Johannesburg? What else would you say? Oh, it's a must visit besides Soweto and Maboneng.
We got also a cultural village.
Okay.
Like, you know, nowadays the modernity has kind of like affected the way us Africans live.
Yeah.
So what happens? We've got a village that has been designed to preserve the culture. You know, traditionally we don't dress like this.
Right.
Like if I'm Zulu, I've got my group right here have got the different traditional dances as well.
Yeah.
And then after that, you are going to be treated with food with the chiefs of the village.
Wow.
You sit down with the chiefs of the village and then, oh, this is fork and knife. Yeah. So in Africa, we do like this.
Yeah, and that's usually tastier.
That's usually tastier when you do it like this, you know, unlike.
All right. Okay. So if I was to share some of my favorites that I would say are a must visit, and maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But I would say like the Apartheid Museum.
The Apartheid Museum is a must visit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one you do it when you coming with Soweto, because for you to understand Apartheid Museum, at least come and see the effects of the system in Soweto. Yes.
Yeah.
So Apartheid Museum is normally done when you do the Soweto Apartheid tour, and then when you do this Johannesburg, when it's only in the city, now we've got a lot of Maboneng, you've got the neighbor goods market as well, where different designers, different chefs as well, they come to showcase the skills there. And then we've got the fashion shows that happen in Braamfontein and street life as well. So yeah.
And what about the legislative? Where did we go earlier that I found quite
interesting? That's the Constitutional Hill.
Yes,
the Constitutional Hill. Now the Constitutional Hill is a very important place in our modern democracy.
Yeah.
It used to be a prison. It used to be a jail. You know, this is a jail where all the black activists will be kept on separately, and then white prisoners and then women's section in all one place. This is where you will find gross human rights violation that were taking place there. Political executions, ill treatments of prisoners. Even when you do the tour of that area, you are going to be taught and educated how even prisoners were treated differently. When it comes to diet requirements and everything. You know, black prisoners will be forced to parade naked, to dance, and all. Yeah, those were all human rights violations. So what happened nowadays is, after the new democracy, after the new country, after the new South Africa, we needed a place that was going to uphold and defend human rights. Now, there was no better place to have such a place than a place where the gross human rights violation was taking place. That's why nowadays it's the biggest court in the country. That's the Constitutional Court in South Africa. It's the biggest court. That's where they make highest decisions there.
Yeah,
Yes,
right,
they make the
right.
highest decisions.